Yeah.
This will be a first for me. I've not done a Malaysian podcast before.
Thank
So
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you. All right. So, do you mind if we start?
Not at all.
Okay. Right. Hi, Rachel. Good. Wait, let me see. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Yes, good morning.
Yeah, my name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless, Read That Again. Juxtaposition of Your Very Soul.
Mm.
First off, I'd like to say thank you very much for saying yes to be interviewed today. And when I read your profile, I think everything that you talk about align to to the reason why I started my podcast in the first place.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, let me just give a bit of introduction about yourself to our listeners, and then we can get on with your stories.
Yeah.
Right. Hello, everybody. We have Rachel Astarte,
Astarte. Astarte. Yeah.
Astarte, who is an author, holistic psychotherapist, and transformational life coach. She is the author of Celebrating Solitude. Oh, I advocate for that as well. How to develop and honor your highest self. And she's also a fellow podcaster, Self Talk with Rachel Astarte. Wow. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicolette.
Likewise. Okay, so Rachel, how was your childhood?
Well, let's jump right in. Um,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Sorry. Right. I hope you don't mind though. It's like I have some questions, but I know we're gonna stray a little bit when once we go in there. So I hope you
yeah.
don't mind though.
No,
You can,
not at
you
all. It's
can,
hilarious. I think as a therapist, if
right.
I'm the person, yeah, how was your childhood? Um, my,
Okay. Funny thing, Rachel, because I'm also I'm practicing to be a therapist as well. Yeah. So I think part of the so part of the reason why I started the podcast is because number one, I wanted to share my own story, but number two, I wanted to be comfortable with talking to people, like, yeah, before I actually get into it. So yeah,
yeah.
it's really nice to actually interview somebody who is in the same journey. And when you say psychotherapist, like, I really want to know that field of yours. All
Yeah, absolutely.
right.
We'll start with my childhood. My my childhood was, from my recollection of it, it was a wonderful childhood. I grew up with amazing parents. They were both artists. My father he's no longer with us. My father was a poet and a
Ooh.
professor of poetry and literature. My mother, who is still with us, is turning 85 this year, and
Wow.
she is still active as an actor, a director, a writer. And yeah, she's very, very active. She still does theater. She does children's theater. She does adult theater. She's just done a documentary. She's very, very active. So I was very blessed to grow up in a creative household, and also a household that was very open-minded about spirituality, which I think those two things formed a lot of who I was, right? Or whatever I brought from past lives, but this was a really great place for me to land. And so, I grew up in a rural town in upstate New York, and then eventually, after my parents divorced, I was, I think, 13 when that happened. We moved into a college town, the town where my father taught, and that was great too. I had the freedom. So growing up in like a farm town and then moving into the big like college town, it was great for a 14-year-old. That's how old I was at that time. Starting high school, where you could walk to a movie theater, you could walk to the grocery store. So even though I was terribly sad my parents split up, I felt
Right.
very liberated. And I met some amazing people at school, who are still very dear friends of mine. So overall, my childhood was I think pretty amazing. And my parents were very wise. Now, my parents were also, since we're talking about therapy and psychology,
Yeah.
my parents were wounded. They were abused as children, and they made absolutely sure that there was a lot of love in our household, which
Ah,
interestingly had its own problems because,
right, right.
like we weren't really allowed to aggressively resolve conflict among my sisters and me. And
Ooh.
so that had long-term effects, but to put a positive spin on it, we're all okay now. We're good. No one is estranged, no one is in jail or addicted to drugs or alcohol. We're all
Yeah.
pretty functional grown women, and so love is there, and but that's the beginning of my journey. Was I started out in the arts, and I'm still in the arts. I'm still I still do voiceovers. I don't do acting as much, but I'm still a writer, and
Ah,
over time I began to really want to connect with people on a deeper level than just the writing or just the acting. So I became a transformational life coach in 2012 and started my practice. And then I began to sort of shift into therapy. So I don't know how it is in Malaysia, but in the United States, to do any kind of psychotherapy if you're not licensed.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I noticed that in my coaching sessions, I really wanted to get into more therapeutic topics. And I said, "Oh, I can't really do that because I'm not allowed to do that." So I just decided to go back to school at 45. I
Ooh,
changed my career. I went back to grad school, and it was about 5 years of school um and clinical
practice, clinical.
training
Yeah.
practice, and then I got licensed, and so my coaching practice became a therapy and coaching practice, and that's kind of where I am now. Yeah.
Wow. It's quite a journey. So
Yeah.
what were you, sorry, you were saying before you changed your career trajectory to transformational life coach. What were you doing then? Arts, like you were writing, you were doing
Yeah.
voiceovers, right?
Yeah.
So you did that for the last like for the first 45 years, and then from 45 onwards you started to, okay, I want to do a shift.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So when I first thought about doing life coaching, at that time, because it took about a couple of years, I had just had a baby, and I was really focused on being a new mom,
Right.
and then I thought, okay, well, I would like to have a career as well,
Mm.
so I'd like to do something. Although raising my child was is still extremely gratifying, and I love it. It's my favorite thing that I've ever done ever. But
No.
um, but I wanted to do something more for people, and maybe being a mother was part of that. Like I wanted to help more and do more
Nurture and
nurture,
help
right?
shape, mold them to,
Yeah,
things that you have
or at
never,
least
yeah.
yeah, at least help them to awaken to their own strengths.
Yeah,
And
point
excuse
them
me.
to the right direction or something like that.
Yeah, so that's made me go to school for life coaching, and I also ended up becoming a clinical hypnotherapist. So I was really
Mm.
trying to build a multi-modality practice. But then, because I've always been interested in psychology, it took a natural progression toward doing actual psychotherapy. And so now,
Wow.
and even that shifted after I got my license, and I had specialized in couples therapy. And I thought at one point I was going to be a sex therapist. And
Right.
then it didn't have the
Sit right
staying
with you.
power for me. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't mind. I mean, I still
Okay.
do kinds of levels of sex therapy with the couples that I work with, but I really was more interested in holistic psychotherapy, mind, body,
Mm.
spirit work because of my own spirituality and wanting to bring that more into the psychological assistance that I could offer. Yeah.
Right. It's like I'm talking to a how do I say, like a scenario that that I've imagined of myself in the future. Because because
Right.
I was before it was I didn't know any better. Younger 20s to 30s to 30, it's trying to survival mode, which
Yes.
is being an accountant, right? So it's okay, it's hustle, hustle, hustle,
Yeah.
achieve, and then what? When I hit 30, I got my I got the things that I worked for, but it was so exhausting. And I also got married and got divorced by 30, before
Okay.
30. So it's like, okay, I thought I'd settle down by 30, have my own kids. No, that did not happen. And
Mhm.
that I threw myself to work and I had burnout.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
boom. So it's like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm starting from scratch right now. And part of the reason why I started my podcast because I want to talk to people. Like I want to see what their life stories were and how do they actually navigate and how is it that they are actually taking themselves to the other side of the journey that they're on, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, I
yeah.
hear that. I mean, that's the focus of my practice now. Now, I work with all genders and all ages. I refer to myself as a self specialist. It's really about finding out who you truly are without the roles and labels that society might
Mm.
put on you or your family might put on you. But what you just said really rings so true. In our 20s and 30s, we're just trying to figure out who we are, and that almost is that key word is ambition,
Oh
achievement,
yeah,
right? And
status.
yeah, and also trying to make a place for yourself. And it is so common to yeah, it's so common to burn out. So now in my practice, I actually start working with women in their 30s to help them to find out who they really are, which helps them to transition into their 40s, 50s, 60s, into midlife. Because if you try to talk to someone in their 30s about, like, okay, let's talk about midlife, they're like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know about
Yeah,
it. You know, it's like,
yeah,
I'm too busy with other things and I don't want to think about dying because that's the way we
yeah.
equate it. But what I'm here to do is help transition women in their 30s into a healthy midlife because there's nothing to fear. I'm on the other side of it. And I'm telling you, life only gets better, but you have to
Yes,
do that
yes.
inner work. You have to do that inner work. But you're
Yeah,
going to do it in
you gotta
depth.
face, do
You've
your
got to
shadow work. Yeah.
that's right. You have to
Oh,
do the shadow work, and you also have to understand how much power you actually have. The biggest problem I've seen with women in their 30s is that they are way too concerned about how others see them.
oh, people need to hear this.
Yeah. And so I help women to kind of shuffle that off. And I'll tell you what, the moment that you're strong in your foundation of self, growing older becomes this it's like a fairy tale, and it's just all these interesting things start happening and you're better able to deal with. I'll tell you, the day that I first started to notice little jowls coming on my face here, I got into a terrible depression, and I was like, oh no, I'm getting old. And I realized I wish that I had some older woman who could tell me, honey, that's nothing, you look fabulous, da, da, da,
But
and you're
seriously,
going to
Rachel, you
actually
look
live
fabulous. I had to pause you there, like when I said, "Oh, she's fine."
But but the point is that in my 30s, that's all I cared about. In my 50s now,
Mm.
I realize there's so much more available to us in our life once we truly love who we are. And when we love who we are, we radiate that love outward. And that's the reason we're here on this earth, not to make a crap ton of money, not to have status, not to have the partner and the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence and the car and the whatever. If you want to have those things, fantastic, but that's not your sole purpose. And that's why people burn out, because it's not
Mm.
gratifying.
Mm.
It's the difference between being happy and being contented, right? And you
Yeah.
move into a more grounded place as you get older. So I really love to help women in particular um, step into their age in a beautiful way so that they can be powerhouses in the world. Yeah.
Oh. We need more people like you, Rachel. That
Well,
is why
you
you're
know,
on my show. You're right. Yeah.
that's why I do what I do, is to help people to step into their power and have more people like that in the world who are comfortable in themselves and celebrate who they are. And then their energy affects other people in a positive way, you know? Yeah.
So, okay, Rachel, we're going to go back to some basic questions.
Sure.
Why is self-development important?
Yeah, well, so we kind of just touched on that, but I'm happy to
Yeah.
go about this all day. Why is self-development important? There are two levels of it, right? Self-development is important so that we, within ourselves, are feeling centered and balanced, so that we can deal with whatever life throws at us in a centered, calm, grounded way. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be, little Buddhas and nothing affects us. We're human beings. We're going to get angry. We're going to get sad. We're going to get completely happy. We're going to be, we're going to have all sorts of emotions. But for us to understand that we are fully human and to celebrate that helps us to be better people. That means dealing with our childhood traumas. That means being realistic about what we're here to do in this one lifetime that we get in this form, right? I don't know what happens before or after, but we get this form in this lifetime. So how are we going to make this the best possible life? So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is, once you've done that, and I call that creating a foundation of self. Once you've done that, what are you going to do with it? So here's the problem I see with women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s. I've done all the things. I've seen the therapist. I've chanted. I've done retreats. I've done the yoga. I'm kind to small animals. Why do I still feel unhappy?
Oh, yeah.
And the reason that we still feel unhappy, I submit, one of the main reasons is because we've lost our larger sense of purpose. Self-development for its own sake is useless, except that we feel good. But
Yeah.
once we feel good, if it stops there, it's like a train hitting a wall, right? So
Right.
what we need to do is push through and share our wonderful selves with the rest of the world. And as a woman, when we hit 40 or so, is wisdom sharing. We're here to be wise women. We're
Yeah.
here to share our wisdom, not to throw it in people's faces, but to be strong and solid in who we are, so that we are able to share our wisdom just by living daily life. And of course, if people come to us for advice or people invite us on their podcast, we get to share some wisdom. And that's why we're here. We're here to help each other for our internal groundedness, but also so that we can literally change the energy of the world around us by being our grounded selves, no matter what age we are, right? So if you think about it, if you're in a bad mood and you go to the grocery store and you're all grumpy, people are going to
Mhm.
pick up on that energy. And the lady or the
Oh,
guy who's
yes.
checking you out, and you're like, "Ah, ah, ah," then that's going to change their energy, and they may be grumpy throughout their day.
To the
Whereas if
other,
you're
yeah.
grounded, you're peaceful, something happens, there's, the person ahead of you is taking too long, and you're just calm with it. And then the cashier is frustrated, and you're like, hey, you're doing a
Hey.
great job, or whatever.
Yeah.
That changes their whole energy, and that ripples outward to the rest of the people they encounter every day. So never forget how powerful we are, but we have to do that self-development work first. So those are the two reasons. Yeah.
So it starts with us.
Yeah, always, always. Where else?
When I saw this one, you put this on your Instagram profile. You said you help women over 30, right? So this is just my curiosity here. Do you think women at when they hit certain points in their lives, do you think they need to redefine their purpose and find their meaning of life again?
Well,
Or
yeah. Or what? Yeah, I'm sorry. I
or
cut you
it's
off.
just or no worries. Or is it like, because like we said, 20s, 30s, that's the achieving, trying to get somewhere in life stage, and then 30s to 40s, oh, maybe family life.
Hmm.
40s to 50s, I don't know, something else, 50s to 60s. So, do you think it is important, or, okay, maybe the question is, what do you see right now that's happening?
Hmm.
And do you think it's important to redefine that?
Yeah, those are great questions. So should women redefine their purpose? I don't know. It really depends on the person, right? So if you're feeling lost or burnt out or not gratified with all of the things that you've done, then yeah, of course, for anyone any age, it makes sense to reassess. And keep in mind that human beings are fluid, right? We're constantly
Mm.
reassessing. We reassess our day on a minute by minute basis, right? So I come downstairs and I expect to do the same, from my bedroom, and I come and expect my morning to look exactly the same way, except, oops, one of the cats threw up. So, okay, that I have to reassess. I have to reassess it. My timing is all off. I've got to take time to clean the puke. So, but that's a very simple example. But when we look at our whole lives, if things are not in alignment, then lovingly, of course, we need to reassess. What's most important, Nicolette, is that we don't judge ourselves, that we don't think that
Mm.
we made terrible mistakes if we have to course correct. I can't tell you how
Yeah.
many times I've
Oh my
changed my
gosh.
career. I've changed my career according to what was right to me at the time. When we do it without judgment, we stay open. The flow state stays open, right? And if
Right.
we say, "Oh, I just wasted 10 years of my life getting an accounting degree or whatever." No, what you did was what you needed to do in that moment to survive. Now,
Right.
whatever you learned, the maybe even the skill set that you learned there or the people that you encountered, that will play into the next thing that you do. Everything is fluid. So we have to stop judging ourselves. The 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 second part of your question that I see about what's going on right now, what I see a lot with women in their 30s. So in my time, turning 30 was terrible. It was just like you might as well just hang it up, like you're old,
Oh,
right? But that
there's nothing else for you to do
Right.
in the world.
It's like you're old now. And of course that has radically changed, thank goodness. And now people might even look at like 50, but all of this is in shift, right? But what I'm seeing with women, young women right now, is a lot of distraction, a lot of
Mm.
distraction. So it's the being on the social media all the time. It's the throwing themselves into dating, into staying youthful. If you scroll through Facebook, Instagram, and you get all, I don't know, I get them for some reason, maybe because of my age, but I get all these like anti-aging creams and anti-aging.
Right.
Almost every single woman that they're using to advertise these things are women in their 30s who don't need it. So what that message being sent to women in their 30s is, oh, I need this because a peer of mine is using the under eye cream. I should use it, which is a
Mm.
terrible message. What it's saying is the moment you see a wrinkle, the moment you see a gray hair, it's panic
I have
time.
one. I have one
Yeah,
here.
I have a streak and I'm very proud of
No,
my streak.
yeah, it's colored, but then if the roots you can see it's only red. It's okay. I mean, I got this from my
There,
mother, so it's.
exactly. Yeah, I got this from a divorce, so I like it. It's the best thing that came out of my divorce. And so, and again, laughter is so important. But what I'm trying to say is that what I'm seeing is young women becoming frightened about aging. And what's
Mm.
happening is that's diminishing their power. And that is
Oh.
exactly what corporate capitalist society wants. They want you afraid of aging so that you buy the products that um, will push back the aging process. By the way, you can't, right? We are all aging every minute. So my hope for young women is that you nail it, that you go into midlife going like, look at me, because I am fabulous
I'm
and you are.
yeah,
And I
yes.
want everyone to see. I can't even tell you. There are friends of mine, there are clients of mine in their 60s and 70s who, when I was in my 30s, I wasn't nearly as awesome as they are. So, I want women in their 30s to stop fearing aging and step into to the adventure. Not that they have to start acting older. Be your age, but don't
Yeah.
fear the path, because the path, I can only tell you, is immensely beautiful. So much baggage gets dropped, and you can really step into your true self. So might as well start doing it now.
Wow. Yeah, it's my favorite topic. So, okay, what is solitude
Mm,
to you?
yeah,
Mm.
it's a great question. Um, Primarily, solitude, to define solitude itself, is a time, or a time that you spend completely alone without outside influence. And I mean that energetically or physically. So, for example, you could be alone, sitting alone in a cafe. That's not solitude, right? It's an intent for me. It's an intentional practice where I am going to spend time just with myself to get to know her better, to answer any of her questions, to deal with some of her traumas, to just celebrate the solitude part, to celebrate just being myself without anybody trying to tell me how I should be or what I should be doing. Where I can just say, you know what, girl, you are awesome. And what do you feel like doing today? Oh, I want to take a hike. Awesome. I want to take a bath. Great. Let's do that. Let's meditate. Awesome. Let's do that. So I really give my clients I invite them to create a regular solitude practice, a daily solitude practice, even if it's 2 minutes, to just say, I'm setting an intention to spend time with myself, for the purpose of celebrating, finding out who she is, right? And spending time with her and being gentle and loving and doing fun, playful, celebratory things just for you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do deep meditation or do deep psychological work. It can really literally be, I'm going to walk around the block and listen to my favorite music, and I'm going to give that as a gift to myself. When we are in solitude, that's when the real healing happens, right? It's not going to be across from a therapist. It's not going to be with your friends. It's not going to be while you're working on the workbooks or reading the books. That's not where the real healing happens. It has to happen in solitude. um, that's where it starts, right? And then it could radiate out once you're around other people and other energies in the world.
Wow. Um, so I asked you a question on what is solitude. Can I also maybe give the listeners the reason why we need regular periods of solitude? What
Yeah.
are the benefits?
Yeah, the benefits, first of all, are visceral. Have you ever been at a party and it's really crazy? You're having a good time, but
At
you're at a
one
party.
point, you just,
Yeah, and you go into the bathroom and
yeah,
you close the door. You know that feeling when you close the
yeah,
door and you're by yourself in the bathroom where it's like, oh God, you know, that's the feeling where it's like all of the outside noise is shut off and I'm just able to be with my true self for a second, even if it's just to use the bathroom. I get to just, I don't have to smile. I don't have to look pretty.
mm,
I don't have to be smart or funny. I can just be. So we give ourselves a gift of that 2 minutes to 2 hours a day, whatever time you have, to just be, just drop all the baggage. Now, for the time that you are in solitude, that feels really good. But what it does to our automatic nervous system is it calms our nervous system, which allows us to be better able to reemerge into the world of people. But on a spiritual and psychological level, it also registers that, huh, you took time for yourself. You respected yourself enough to take just a few minutes taking a walk or reading a book you love or taking a bath. And that does something to your psyche that makes you respect yourself more. So that's why regular periods of solitude are so important. It's a way to cultivate long-term self-respect.
Oh, wow. What, how beautifully put. It's actually to cultivate self-respect, long-term self-respect. I respect myself enough to take the time out.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it very well. Yeah.
So, Rachel, this is a question on mentorship. What makes mentorship so important in midlife?
hmm Yeah. So if you're in your 30s, don't tune out. This is important because you're going to be in your midlife at some point. So,
Mm.
mentorship, or another way that I like to put mentorship, sometimes the word mentor scares people, but
Yeah.
because it means like, oh, it seems like a lot of work.
Mm.
Let me redefine it for a second. When we normally think of, let me ask you, when you hear the word mentor, what what comes to
It's
mind?
a male figure, a male figure trying to mentor a young man to
Okay.
get where he needs to be in his life if he has a goal.
hmm
Now that's in the that setting, but for like coaching, life coaching setting, that I would imagine somebody like yourself that will provide guidance to people who wants to be attuned to themselves.
hmm
Now I might just be but the first thing that came to mind, like you said, it's a very there is a stigma around mentorship. It's like it has to be hard, has to be like effort. You gotta put in the work. Of course, you gotta put in work in everything, but it's like swimming against the current. I guess that's what I want to say.
Yeah. What we normally think of when we think of mentorship is kind of what you said at the beginning, and it's usually in the business setting, right?
Yeah,
So it's a male or female person who is more experienced bringing someone in to do better in their career. We also
right.
see mentorship in volunteer work where an older person might mentor a younger person, help them stay out of trouble, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's usually where it ends, or some variation of that. In midlife, when I refer to mentorship, what I'm really talking about is wisdom sharing. What I'm
Mm.
talking about is by the time you're in your 40s and 50s, you have amassed a certain amount of life experience and you've succeeded in some areas, you've failed in some areas, and then you've processed those successes and failures and sort of alchemically turned that into wisdom. It's not enough to just live your life, right? That doesn't make you wise, but to
Yeah.
process it and get the lessons out of your life experience, that's what creates wisdom. So in midlife, we are actually called uh, psychologically and spiritually to become wisdom sharers, right? So the scientific aspect of it, and you'll like this because you study psychology. Eric Erikson in the late 1950s came up with the stages of psychosocial development. When we
Right.
are in our midlife, we are at a stage called stagnation versus generativity. We have a choice to either stay stuck in our life or to generate. Well, what are we generating? Does it mean we have to write a best-selling book? Does it mean we have to have, a multi-million dollar career? I don't think so. What it means is we're being asked to move energy on its purest form, which is share our life wisdom with younger people. Um, and so that's how we stay active. There was a statistic from, I don't know, there was a study done in 2019, where the number one cause of midlife crisis is a lack of purpose, feeling like you don't have a lack of purpose. So in order to avoid that midlife crisis is to feel like you are important, you have a purpose. Your purpose is to be a wisdom sharer. Now, what you do in your career and your private life, that's all part of it. That's how you're living. But to really feel, and this is what I was talking about earlier, we do that inner work, we see our therapist, we do our yoga, we eat well, we exercise, whatever. That's not enough. That's what we start to realize in midlife. Like, why am I still depressed? Why am I still feel like I don't have a purpose? It's because we're not sharing. We're not giving back to humanity.
Oh, yeah.
When I work with younger women to help them find out who they are, that helps them seamlessly transition into midlife, into the wisdom sharing role, right? Whereas I work also with women in midlife who didn't do that in their 30s. So we're doing that work now, right? Or are completing that work or continuing that work that they started in their 30s. But here's the thing. The wisdom sharing part and the middle age part, that's not even the end of it. We are now transitioning. I'm not even there yet. We're transitioning into elderhood. And that is another beautiful phase of life. So every phase of our life is so important. And we have to make the most. We don't have to. I'm inviting everyone to make the most of it, right? So that our lives are certainly more blessed, but so are the lives of people around us. That's why we do this. That's why mentorship is important. That's why wisdom sharing is important.
How can someone be a mentor if their life is not where he or she wants it to be?
Yeah, it's a great question. Don't forget that we are always works in progress, right? So
Yeah.
even if your life is not where you want it to be, you are working on it. And there is always going to be someone, forgive me if this sounds incorrect, but there are always going to be people a few steps behind you on the path experientially whom you can turn around and help, right? If you've been through something, it seems like you haven't done that much in your life and you're not where you want to be. You're not a fully enlightened, self-actualized being, you know, but you've been through quite a lot of experiences or even just a few experiences and you've learned from them. There are people behind you on the path who have not had those experiences and don't know at all how to deal with them. You can help those people, right? So you can still be a mentor, right? So Nicolette, at your age, having gone through divorce before you were 30, there are people going through divorces in their 20s whom you can help, even if you are still working on yourself, right? I've been
Yeah.
divorced 3 times,
No.
it's like, it's like, there are lots of people I can help too. But that's what I'm saying. And one of them was before I was 30. So there's a whole bunch of women who are going through this all by themselves and are maybe feeling badly about themselves. And you may be working on yourself in this direction, but if you
Yeah.
look behind you, there's a whole line of women who could use your advice and wisdom. Do you see what I mean? So even if you haven't gotten where you want to go, you can still turn around and help people who aren't quite where you are yet because you have had that experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, part of the why I wanted to just well, I took the time off. I went into hermit mode for a bit, for I think about
Have to
two,
do it.
4 years. Yeah,
Hmm.
actually not 2 years, 4 years. And then I only started my podcast this year.
Hmm.
I started sharing my what happened because, yeah, it's like I knew people like wanting to know, like maybe my friends, they were like, oh, what happened to Nicolette and whatnot, and now she's changed her career. Now she's open about it. So I think what you said is actually uh, that resonated very, very much to what my intention was in the beginning,
Hmm.
and it's still a work in progress. Like I still want to do that. I still want to talk to more people, and also therapy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not qualified just yet, but
But you're getting there, and you know what? It's so needed. We need more healers and helpers out there. So that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
okay. So right. Why do young people need mentors?
I think we've kind of covered that, but I will briefly reiterate. The really simple answer to that is so they don't feel alone and they don't feel broken. You know, when we're going through challenges, we often feel alone. We feel like we're the only ones who've ever gone through it, or we don't know who to reach out to talk, except our own peers who are going, "Yeah, I'm having trouble dating too," or "Yeah, this is really hard."
Yeah.
Boss, and I don't know. Here's how I got through it. You might find a different path, but you're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. And here's why it's going to be okay. Not just platitudes of, "Oh, you'll be all right." That's not what people need to hear. That's not wisdom sharing. That's not necessarily mentorship to just say you'll be okay. Nobody wants to hear that because it sucks in
Yeah.
the moment.
Yeah.
But to be able to have a safe place to talk to someone who has been through what you've been through is in and of itself extremely healing. So if I'm a recovering alcoholic and I want to go see a counselor, I almost want that counselor to be a recovering alcoholic, right? So because I want them to
Yeah,
know
that's
what
so
it's
true.
like, you know,
Yeah.
and because otherwise it just doesn't feel like they get me.
Yeah.
So it's really important for people to know, um the people who are going through stuff, and we're always going through stuff, to know that you're not alone, and to look toward the people who are a little older than you, more experienced than you, to see that it will be okay, that you've got someone you can talk to, that someone who's been where you are is so it's invaluable. And we can have that at any age. Even the women in midlife that I work with, I encourage them to find elders for their own mentorship. So I'm talking about women in their 50s and 60s. I'm saying go find someone in their 70s and 80s, and go talk to them, because we need to know. It's good all the way around. The younger people get the support, the older people get that sense of purpose, right?
Yeah.
And it's
So
so
it's
important, especially
two-way.
sure.
What is your take on negative self-talk?
Oh, yeah, that's a big subject, and it's something that happens. Yeah, no, it happens to all of us. So negative self-talk is something that is conditioned, right? It's something that we are not born with. Uh, Somewhere along the line, we receive negative information about ourselves, and it could be experiential, but more often than not, it is someone telling us that we're not good enough, or that we're bad, or that we aren't, whatever, pretty enough, smart enough, agile enough, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Thin enough,
Right. Then
curvy enough.
exactly, all of that. And so what happens when we're young, um, our little brains are like sponges, and we take those words to heart. And because all any human being wants, is to be loved and heard and cared for, and accepted for who we are. When we're told something different, we think, oh, well, in order to get that person's love, I need to change. I need to drop 15 pounds. I need to work out harder. I need to, study harder, even though I might have a learning disability and that's really, really difficult for me, whatever it is. So all we, the unconscious receives the message that we are not good enough. And so when those voices, those literal voices from our parents, from our teachers, from our caregivers, are no longer present in our life because we've moved out of the house, let's say, those become our inner voice. And so if you're told constantly as a child, you're ugly, you're stupid, and then you move out of the house, your ugly or stupid stays in your mind, but
Stays
now it
with
sounds
you.
like
Yeah.
your own voice is telling you that.
Yeah.
It's no longer the parent or the caregiver or the teacher. It sounds like it's you. But if you really investigate it, the the origins of that voice are absolutely not your true self. They're coming from wounded people, hurt people, right?
Hurt
So why
people.
would you
Hurt people.
why
Yeah.
would you ever tell a child that they're ugly and stupid, or that they're not good enough or whatever? Why would you ever do that unless you yourself are hurt
For
or see better,
yeah.
right? So that's part of the therapy work, is to say, how do I reprogram that voice in my head? Now, negative self-talk also has a positive purpose. Nobody likes to hear that, but it's true. Hey, you're going out for a job, right? You know you're not going to get this job, right? You know that you are not nearly talented enough and your resume sucks, and negative, 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 right? What's the real purpose for that? The real purpose is our negative self talk is trying to protect us from harm. It's
Mm,
trying to say, I don't want you to fall on your face. I don't want you to get hurt. I don't
hurt.
want you to make a fool of yourself. Right. So negative self talk does have a positive purpose sometimes, not always. Not you're ugly or stupid has no point. But
Yeah.
but when you're telling yourself you're not going to get that job, you're not going to that person won't ever want to be with you or whatever. That's all. So we can work with that uh, through reprogramming how we speak to ourselves. And the first step of it is to understand that a lot of the times negative self-talk is actually trying to protect us, like a dog will bark at the door when a friend comes over. Sounds really
Yeah.
nasty, right?
Yeah.
But you tell the dog, hey, that's my friend, you can go lie down. Good dog, thank you for protecting me, but I've got this, I'm in control. Yeah.
But I think the key here is to make sure that you don't let the negative self-talk consume you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't identify with it, because
Yeah.
remember, it
Yeah.
has a purpose. And letting first of all, understanding where it comes from and understanding why it's there helps you gain control over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the biggest misunderstanding about boundaries?
Oh, yeah, it's a beautiful question. The biggest misunderstanding about boundaries is that we are doing it to protect ourselves from another person, and it ends up sort of acting like a wall between us, right? The biggest misunderstanding is that we're doing it solely for our own protection. The truth is, boundaries are in place for the benefit of both people, right? So I teach a whole class in this, that we have to rethink what boundaries mean. And what do I mean by how can my boundary benefit someone else? It protects them from my passive aggression, from my anger.
Uh,
So if I let somebody, I have a friend who calls me at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't really, but I'm hypothetically, if I have a friend who's calling me at 7 in the morning every morning and wants to talk for an hour, and maybe I let that happen a couple times, but it's really starting to affect me. If I just sort of say, it's okay, I'm not going to create the boundary. I'm not going to say, please don't call me until 10. What happens to me? I start to feel angry. I start
yeah.
to maybe that person invites me for coffee and I'm suddenly busy. But,
Yeah.
instead of, so I'm being passive aggressive, I'm being angry, I'm being resentful toward my friend because I didn't create a loving and healthy boundary,
Boundaries. Yeah.
right? So our boundaries actually protect the other person. Boundaries are actually a way for us to have a better relationship, right? It's not just to protect you and your energy, which is very selfish. It's about
Yeah. Yeah.
creating a healthier relationship with the other person.
Well, that's another perspective that I actually didn't think of. Like usually boundaries, when we say we set it, it's more for protection of ourselves. Like
Hmm.
but actually it's also for the other party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Rachel, what is your heart's greatest wish?
My heart's greatest wish is that people will know how powerful they are and how much being the best human being they can affect everyone else. That we really would understand how interconnected we are. That there really is no separation. I mean, there is, of course, we have our individual beautiful lives, but the better our individual life, the better all of humanity is, when we share that with everyone. I wish everyone could see their beauty to the world.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Do you have
absolutely.
a mantra that you live by?
Um, there are so many, and it really does change with the times, but lately, mine has been live and let live. That's just
Ooh,
a really powerful one for me. Do the best you can, let others be on their path, and give them love and compassion. Um, live and let live.
so do you have anything that keeps you up at night?
No, I sleep really well.
I
um,
like that. I like that. Hearing from my guests.
sometimes, yeah, that is very true. But like a lot of people whose minds work, when I get into bed at night, yeah, there are things that I mull over. Could be the world events. There's always some
Yeah,
craziness going on.
that's
But
right.
it could also be working on a new project. I have a new class I'm developing, or one of my clients said something or sent me a disturbing email that I want to process. But here's what I do in that moment is, and I recommend this to everybody. I keep notepads, little sticky notes and cards, and by my bed with a pen, and I'll write down what's on my mind, and I release it. I can come back
Oh,
to it in the morning, and that
oh,
helps me to fall asleep.
wind
So
down. Wow.
yeah, so there are things that keep me up temporarily until I write them down, and then I know, hey, you know what, love, we're going to get to these in the morning. Why don't you get a good night's sleep so that you can address that properly? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's key. So you can address that properly. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, Rachel. The last question. If you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
It's funny you use the word legacy, because the word legacy is in the quote. Your en-
Ah,
your energy is your legacy. What you leave
oh my
is
gosh, that is so powerful.
what you will leave after you're no longer in this energetic iteration, this body, will be the energy that you have left here, right? So be very careful, cautious about what you're putting out into collective consciousness, right? What energy are you putting out? Because that's what you're leaving after your body isn't here anymore, right?
Beautiful. Thank you, Rachel, for your time. I think that wraps up our interview
Thank
today.
you, Philip. That was lovely.
It was very refreshing to hear from somebody like yourself. I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope we can keep in touch. I
Yep,
followed you on Instagram, and then
beautiful.
when this when this episode airs, I will be tagging you, so you can yeah share that with your listeners
Oh,
as
I
well.
will. Absolutely. I will share it with all my people. And yeah, and anyone is more than welcome to contact me. I wanted to say that too. If anybody does want to work with me one on one, um, I don't, like other therapists expect you to have weekly sessions. You can just see me for one session if you're working on something, right? So people can go to
Right.
my website, rachelastaretherapy.com, and just book a sesh, and we can chat.
Right. Okay. Right. I'll be sure to include that in the caption. when I publish this. Thank you so much, Rachel. You have a beautiful day.
You-
I
All
love the
right.
work that you do. Continue
Thank
doing
you.
it.
And congratulations on your path too. I'm sure you'll make a fantastic therapist.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you soon, Rachel. Bye bye.
Bye.